Hey, strangers. Welcome to the spring edition of the Strange Sessions. Kurt, how you feeling? You feeling a little springy today?
No.
You don't look very springy to me.
I feel absolutely lousy.
You seem very under the weather.
It was the first week that students were back at school.
Mm-hmm.
All of them, except for a couple that are staying virtual, and it was just, I don't know. It was just rough.
Yeah.
It was seriously rough and exhausting. And students that I used to be cool with, they aren't really cool anymore.
Oh, really?
And stuff. And it's just been
It was
bad.
a trying week.
It was a trying week. Like I told you before we started recording, there was one night I was literally laying in bed, reading a book, getting ready to go to bed at 10 to 6.
Wow.
Because I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
And after I got home from work yesterday, which was the most trying day, yesterday was bad. My chest started to hurt, and my chest still hurts. But I looked it up, and it's not like COVID. Like if I was congested,
you didn't bring me the Rona.
I hope I didn't bring you the Rona, because I don't have any other symptoms. It's just my chest hurts, but I've noticed that's been happening a lot lately when I eat. So hopefully something major isn't wrong.
It's not like a heartburn thing, is it?
I have bad heartburn at night.
Oh, so you know what heartburn is.
Yeah,
okay.
but it's just like a weird pain. So I don't really have any money.
Stress? Maybe it's just stress.
I think it's a lot of stress. I think the chest pain right now is a stress, but I'm just exhausted and my chest hurts. So
this is like complaining corner.
this is Kurt's complaining corner.
Well, and Krista's complaining because I started school this week. It was just like working like 9+ hours a day and then coming home and doing like 2 hours of homework. I didn't have jury duty,
so that's a good thing.
I have not had to report for jury duty once yet, and I already know that my Tuesday trial for this coming week was settled, so I only have to worry about Thursday, and then the following week there's 3 days on my calendar, and then I'm done for the month. Wow. So hopefully I don't ever, knock on wood. But yeah,
I want to do jury duty, just not when COVID is going on.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't mind doing it. I've done it, but it's not right now. We're in the middle of annual comp, and it's just a really busy time for me. So and school, I just got too much going on.
I feel like I do, but it's just work is just. And then Rhonda gave me stuff to do for a taste test that I forgot at home. I forgot my good glasses at home I can read with. And then when I tried printing this out last night, my printer ran out of ink.
Dang.
And I'm broke, so I don't have money to go get. So
you could have emailed it to me, and I could have printed it out.
Yeah, I would have. I honestly skipped. I would have said, let's just wait another 2 weeks. But people want the episodes, so I don't want to leave people hanging. So it's just.
Well, on a positive note, speaking of...
And I don't think this is a good episode because I didn't...
So you're in for a real crappy ride today. If you guys
want to skip this one, I won't be offended, I promise.
No, everybody loves these topics, so I think it'll be good.
Yeah, but it's just like a rehash of an episode we did way back at the beginning.
That's cool. Well, on a positive note, speaking of spring, you got to take a look at my lovely little seedlings today that I'm very excited about.
I did. They're super cute.
Aren't they cute?
They are.
They're so cute.
And you're going to put the big thing outside to grow stuff in?
Eventually. That's our raised bed, one of our raised beds. Yep. So, we're excited. And we just had we had designers come to the house yesterday because we're planning a huge kitchen renovation. We're moving our kitchen to our dining room.
Really?
Yeah, so we're going to have a huge kitchen in our dining room.
Okay.
Yeah, and then our current kitchen is going to become a full bathroom and a laundry room. So, yeah.
Huh.
We have some major stuff planned, but we need blueprints so that we can move forward with all
that. I'd be like, I don't know, we'll try putting this here.
Yeah, you don't need like permits or anything, right? So yeah, you'll be walking through a construction zone at some point for recording, but I'll make sure Jim's not doing any actual construction while we're recording.
I thought you'd have construction workers here and stuff. We can have them come down and ask them questions about the episode.
Yeah, hey, do you want to taste
what
this?
What do you think about simulation theory?
It'd be hilarious. Well, they're probably gonna have to come down, like the plumber. We're gonna have a plumber and electrician do like the electrician will do everything.
Yep.
But the plumber will do the rough plumbing, and Jim can finish everything else. But so there will be people down here, just not while we're recording. But that would be really funny.
It would be.
I'm sorry. Can you come over here for a second?
Yeah. Here, have this fish cracker. And do you think we're living in a computer simulation?
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Give shout outs to our newest strangers, and those are easy list this week. Brooke Perez, I think we gave her one last time, so she might have got a twofer.
Ooh.
She might have got a double shout out because I think she signed up late the last time
maybe.
We added her.
Okay.
Brooke Perez, Sheila McHale, Susanna Briggs, Rob Harper, Gianna Dudley, and Tyler Davis.
Oh, and did you ask me to ask our Instagram
Yeah,
people?
but we can do that for next time.
Well, why don't I just ask them right now? If you've joined Instagram and you're not a stranger, give me a message on Instagram for a shout out, because we want to give shout outs to our Instagram people too.
Yeah.
We don't want to just favor our strangers on the Facebook page. So
on the Facebook.
if you would like a shout out and you haven't gotten one yet and you're on Instagram, send me an IM and we'll make that happen for you.
And I also, as usual, want to give a shout out to some of my students that listen. So it's definitely the one I mentioned last time. Cadence is awesome. And if we're still around, and if I'm still around 5 years from now and we're doing this, I'd like to have her come on the podcast.
Oh, that'd be
she's
fun.
really into this stuff.
Cool.
But as an 8th grader, I don't think I could be like, hey, how about I pick you up and we take you out
We'll
to
hang
this
out in
person's
this
house
basement.
that you don't know out in Shipwagon.
Yeah.
So I don't think that would fly. So,
Probably not.
So like 5 years, if we're still around,
Gotcha.
if we're still talking to each other.
I'm turning. Oh my God. I'm turning my notifications off because Facebook keeps dinging. People are hopefully guessing about the photo that I posted, the 2 photos
probably,
I posted.
where I look like I feel like garbage.
Which photo accurately depicts
represents,
how Kurt feels today?
So Cadence, thank you for listening. Samantha listens sometimes. So if any of my students, if you guys do listen and want a shout out, just come up to me and be like, hey, Mr. K, could you give me a shout out on the podcast? Because I totally will.
We will totally do that.
And Cadence says hi.
What's up, Cadence?
Because you said hi in the last episode. She said, make sure you tell Krista hi.
Very nice.
Yeah, my students are so cool. Most of them.
But it's feeling a little jaded this week.
Yes. Yeah. I said something. I called them, talking to another teacher, I called them little somethings that starts with S. And
Sure.
And they said, yep, your honeymoon period is over and you sound like an educator now.
Oh, that's funny. You'll have good days and bad days.
Yeah.
The kids probably have good days and bad days too. And that's what.
And I need to remember that they're kids and that they were cooped up and all that good stuff.
They're under a lot of stress too.
Yeah.
Being
Housekeeping?
a teenager isn't the same as it was when we were teenagers.
It's not at all.
Housekeeping?
It is not at all.
I don't really have any
I
housekeeping.
want to give a huge thank you to Beth for painting the Toy and Be tile for us.
That was so cool.
Which is awesome.
It got cool reactions on our Facebook page.
And it's so awesome. And we're going to do something with it. I'm just not exactly sure what
Did we
yet.
post that on Instagram? I don't think we did. I
No,
need to.
post that on Instagram. We had a busy week.
Yeah. Yeah.
We drop the ball sometimes, but that's okay. That's okay. Any other housekeeping you can think of?
I don't think so. Do you want to do a taste test?
Yeah, we didn't complain about the weather because it's actually nice.
It's beautiful. It's going to be like 50 and sunny today. So, like I said, the spring edition of the Strange Session.
I'm sure we'll get a snowstorm yet, though.
We will, 100%.
You know how that's going to go. We are going to taste test our Japanese coffee that Beth sent to us.
I feel like I need a degree in physics just to prove this.
Looking at the instructions on the back.
Thank goodness they're in English.
Yeah. And it's like you're hanging it in a cup by some hooks and pouring it in, and it's just weird.
I at least have hot water and mugs prepared, so we're supposed to shake it.
I got Dunkin' Donuts, but I forgot it in the car.
Well, it'll be waiting for you on your ride home. It's going to be kind of lukewarm.
I don't care. I like cold coffee.
Okay, we're shaking it to settle the coffee to the bottom, right?
I'm just like...
I should take pictures of this. Trying to be better at taking pictures, because people always comment that they really like...
the candids?
Yeah. Why is everything... I'm getting a new phone today. Let's just say, if you really enjoy my blurry Instagram photos, you're going to be disappointed, because that's so much better.
You maybe just needed to clean it.
Maybe. Okay. Did I get it? Yeah. Okay. So...
We're going to try that.
Yeah.
And...
some chocolate.
A chocolate bar that was sent to us a while ago by listener Melissa.
Last year,
yes,
I think.
by Melissa.
Was that your stomach?
That was my stomach.
I feel like I can just stop asking that question
because chances are it's going to be my stomach.
It's your stomach. Okay.
I don't think the strange cellar is haunted.
No, I don't think so either.
Oh, Krista
I forgot we named the studio. The Strange Cellar. Okay. I have to do this.
It smells good.
Oh, it smells really good.
Really good.
I was really kind of skeptical about this, but the smell has me super excited.
Like, look at this hook thingy.
This is high tech.
This is high tech. Like,
leave it to the Japanese to come up with something like this.
Like,
oh, that smells amazing.
Like this hook is. I'm trying to figure out what to do.
Okay, I think this is what I think. Do you see how I did that?
Pull mine out. Quiet. I have students listening.
I think
you got it right, but what? Like that? Nice. Yes. That is funky.
It is. And then do you open it? Do we have to open
Look
the
at
top?
that.
Okay, we have to pull.
Look at
Do you
that.
see this? That is awesome. I think we have to do that.
I gotta take a picture of mine.
And then you pull this apart. Oh, this is very exciting.
This is actually really cool.
Okay. Wow. That is really cool.
Can you open mine?
That is, oh, that's why you were holding it
That's
up?
why I was holding it out.
I thought you were like, take a picture of this, which I did.
I really kind of like this idea of making it like this.
It's really smart.
It is.
Okay.
It's like its own filter hanging
It's
above
totally
the
cool.
coffee cup.
Okay. There's steam coming out the top, so that's a good
according
sign.
to this, after moisten coffee with a little hot water and wait for about 20 seconds, pour hot water over coffee in 2 or 3 sessions. So
Okay.
pour a little, wait like 20 seconds, pour a little, wait like 20 seconds. Too much.
Here. I hope there's enough water in there. It doesn't hold a ton of water.
It should
Okay,
be.
wait 20 seconds.
Yep.
Okay. I guess I can just watch the screen.
My stomach is just gurgling away. Dunkin' Donuts. I'm just kind of not a fan of their breakfast stuff anymore. I don't know what
you
it is.
loved it at
I
first.
know, but I don't.
I think it's been 20 seconds. So just a little more.
A little more.
Okay. Ooh, it's got a drip thing going on. This is
does
fun.
too. This is fun.
There's a bit of water left, so
There's not very much coffee in there.
no. I wonder if it's supposed to be like espresso,
Maybe.
where it's just a little cup of it. I think we should just keep pouring until the water's gone, though.
Oh yeah, totally.
I wish they could hear this.
This is actually kind of fun.
It is. It's kind of turning it into like a little ritual.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that actually. It kind of is.
You could make this a very intentional thing in the morning and have like a moment of zen.
I'm sure our listening to us pour water over coffee grounds is riveting for you guys at home.
Very riveting. Now I'm a creamer person, so I'm gonna have to drink this without creamer. I like my non-dairy vanilla unsweetened creamer stuff. You can cut out a lot of this silence or the sound of dripping. I should put this up by the microphone. I think this is going to be strong, which is okay. Should I pour more in?
Sure.
We got probably one more pour each. This is a fun little experiment.
This is actually
I
really
hope
cool.
it's worth all the effort that this takes. The chocolate's going to go really good with this, though, I think. I'm
It'll
excited.
pair well with it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It does smell really good. It seriously does. I have never seen that kind of contraption before for making coffee either, which
It's
is
like
really
some
cool.
Serious engineering. Okay, ready?
Ready?
It's good.
It is good.
It's really good. Mm-hmm. Tastes like coffee.
It doesn't taste like... It doesn't.
It's not very bitter.
It doesn't taste like when you get those instant crystals or
No.
whatever and make it like those aren't good. This is good.
This is really good. It's really smooth.
That is really good coffee. It's got a little different taste. There's something about it that's different. But it's super smooth.
Mm-hmm. It's really smooth.
But there's just a little differentness.
It's a little nutty.
Yeah.
I like the aftertaste.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really good.
This is really good. Thank you, Beth.
So good.
I really do like this.
Maybe that'll actually keep me warm. All right, do you want to try the chocolate?
Yeah.
I'll take a
I'm
picture.
really liking this
So I didn't
coffee.
just melt it by putting this on top of it.
Probably has like 500 times the usual amount of caffeine or something like that.
So we're going to be talking like really, really fast by
Bouncing
the
off
end
the
of
walls.
this. Okay.
It's raspberry chocolate. You can't go wrong with that.
No kidding. You can't go wrong with chocolate in general. Okay.
You
It's
can if it's
dark
unsweetened chocolate.
chocolate.
Blech.
70% though. That's like that. Anytime you get above 70%, then you're like borderline like baking chocolate. Wow. Oh, it's got like nuts in it too. You see, it's like got crunchy stuff.
Oh,
in
it's
it.
like a crunchy stuff. Hopefully not
It's
pecans.
organic and fair trade. I'm just gonna break some off and.
Thank you.
A Jersey Mike's opened up in our town.
I saw that. Have you been there?
No, we're gonna try
Oh,
it today.
let
Oh,
me know.
it's actually like freeze dried raspberry.
Raspberries.
Okay, ready?
Ready?
I want to take a picture. You're going to have to taste it again.
Well, I won't, I had to delete a swear word that Krista just did. I'll hold it in my mouth until you put it in yours.
Okay, ready?
Uh-huh. That raspberry.
That is dark chocolate, though.
But that raspberry is really good in there.
Yeah, the freeze-dried raspberry is kind of crunchy a little bit. It's really good like raspberry flavor, though.
One of those Nestle's Crunch bars.
But it's raspberry.
This is really good. Wow. 2 winners today.
Now I need a sip of coffee because they go so well together.
It's nice not eating something fishy or spicy.
Yes, totally.
Or both.
It's Theo brand. Sorry, we probably should have said that. Theo Organic Fair Trade Raspberry, 70% dark chocolate. It's yummy.
This was a good little taste test.
Square, yeah.
I feel all elegant. Are you ready?
All right.
So this episode is just kind of a... I don't even want to say update because I don't really update a lot. It's just kind of a rehash of an older episode that got deleted from our RSS feed. It's still on YouTube. I believe it is still in Internet Archive. Tiff put our episodes all up on Internet Archive, and I think it might still be on Spotify, but it's out of the...
I think if you go right to our website, though, and go to the RSS feed...
It's there?
I think so. It's just, it's not showing up in, like, Stitcher or Apple Podcasts or whatever.
Yeah. But...
We still have to get with Nick on that.
I know, because it was so long ago, and our audio quality was lackluster, we'll just say.
Well, and there have been updates to these topics.
Yeah, but not a lot.
Okay.
I mean, we're just gonna kind of recap what we talked about in the last one, but well, there'll be a couple other things. I mean, there's a couple new things. So basically, we're going to be talking about the Mandela Effect, CERN, and simulation theory.
Okay.
I feel like when we talked about them last time, it was kind of dense because we kind of...
Were
like
they
the
all
reality
the same?
stuff. No, like the reality stuff we talked about, and that's kind of when we talked about simulation theory and Mandela Effect. We got into CERN a little bit, but I don't think we got a lot into CERN.
We did an episode on CERN, though, didn't we?
No, we talked about that in the Mandela Effect. So this time we're not going to cover too much about the Mandela Effect itself, but we are going to talk about some of the ones that we have talked about in the past and like what your favorite one is and what my favorite one is. But we're going to start this by... Some listeners might not even know what the Mandela Effect is. So this is a story I got from, I think it's called pajiba.com.
Sure.
Something like that.
Sounds right.
And this will just give you this story. It's not too long, but this will give you like an idea of what the Mandela Effect is all about. It's from an article called You Got Mail, the Mandela Effect and Collective False Memories. The article says, quote, "My wife's all-time favorite movie is Harold and Maude, but she's always had this really sweet soft spot for You've Got Mail with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. We watched it over the weekend, the first time I've seen it in a while. It's a 1998 film that I probably haven't seen since 2005, although I have probably seen it 3 or 4 times at least. I had a strong recollection of the film, and I could recite a number of the scenes before they happened. I wouldn't count it among my favorite films or anything, but it clearly resonated enough that I could remember a lot of the lines. The family liked it a lot, and I continue to like it, except for one thing, the ending. It's not there anymore. Or rather, the ending I remember is no longer in the movie. In the movie I watched over the weekend, Kathleen tells Joe, quote, I wanted it to be you. I wanted it to be you so badly. And then they kiss, and Brinkley hugs them before the camera drifts up into the sky, and it says the end. Except that that's not how I remember it ending. I have a very strong memory of this movie, and I have a very vivid memory of an additional scene in which Kathleen is reading to children, and as the camera pulls back, it's revealed to be a version of her bookstore, the little shop around the corner, that has been rebuilt inside of Joe Fox's bookstore. My memory of that scene is so vivid that I told the kids to wait until after the credits began rolling because it might be a mid-credits scene or an after-credits scene. We watched all the way through the credits, however, and never saw that scene. I asked my wife if she knew why that ending was not in this version that was streaming on HBO Max, and she had no idea what I was talking about, and she had said she had seen the movie a dozen times. Not only that, but she told me that was a terrible ending. Okay, I said that might be true, but I definitely remember that ending. Maybe it was a director's cut or something. I looked it up. There is not an alternate director's cut. But I specifically remember that ending, I insisted. And then my wife insisted that maybe I was conflating Meg Ryan's scene with Chris Messina in Fox Books and the scene in her own bookstore where she is reading to children. But I genuinely did not believe this to be true. I remembered those two scenes, and they did not look similar to the ending of the movie that was in my memory. And so I did what anyone else might do and consulted the internet. What I discovered was this. There is no alternate director's cut. There is no alt DVD or Blu-ray cut. As far as I can tell, there is no other edit out there of this movie. And yet, there are Reddit threads where users have the same exact memory. They also couldn't locate the ending in the other versions of the film, and they insisted that they remembered the same ending that I remembered.
I love this stuff.
Yeah, and that's kind of my Mandela Effect in a nutshell.
Right.
And the article goes on to say, of course, it's possible that tens or hundreds or thousands of people mixed up two scenes, but isn't it weird that we all have the same specific memory? Especially because that's not the wish fulfillment ending I would have given the film in my own head in the first place.
Right.
My first thought was that it was the Mandela Effect, and it was a thought that those on Reddit also had. It's an amusing thought, isn't it? Our universe split apart from another universe where You've Got Mail had a totally different ending. But honestly, I'm a rational, logical person. I know the Mandela Effect is not real. There may be alternate universes, but we do not have access to them. And yet, for the life of me, I cannot rationally explain how so many of us could have the same exact vivid memory of a scene that apparently never happened.
That's a weird thought.
Yeah.
That there are other alternate universes. We just don't have access to them.
Is this some sort of mass delusion? Did someone on some television show once suggest this as an alternate ending and we all pictured it so vividly in our minds that it became a reality? It's weird. Memory is weird. But You've Got Mail? Not weird at all. It's still a lovely movie, but just one with a weirdly abrupt ending.
I've seen the movie, but I couldn't tell you.
I've never seen it. I mean,
it's probably been a couple decades since I've seen it, so I have zero to add to this.
But that is the Mandela Effect in a nutshell. It is when... Yeah. And there's a Mandela Effect Reddit group, but people just get it so confused with, like, my keys weren't where I put them. Oh. That must be the Mandela Effect. No. The Mandela Effect is when a lot of people remember something being a specific way when it is not that way in reality.
And it never was.
Yeah. And that's a big thing, too, is that it never was. That's another frustrating thing. Like with my New Zealand stuff. Everybody's like, well, go look back at old maps. And it's like, no, if it's not right now, it's not going to be right on those maps.
Right.
You know, it was like, we'll get into that.
Ooh, you just curded
myself. But that is the Mandela Effect. When something changed somehow and a lot of people remember it being a different way.
Do you want to quickly explain why it's called the Mandela Effect?
The term Mandela Effect was coined in 2010 by paranormal researcher Sophia Broom when she noticed that others, just like her, misremembered the Nelson Mandela funeral. Like, a lot of people thought he had died, and it turned out that he didn't. But people specifically remember watching his funeral on TV, and he was still alive.
And what year was it? 2009, you said?
She coined the term in 2010.
So she remembers the funeral happened,
yes.
And he didn't pass away till like 2013.
It was like
or
later,
something like that. Yeah.
But a lot of people are like, "What? I remember watching that on TV." So she called it the Mandela Effect, and it's stuck. That has stuck. And what's weird is that it was well before 2010 when I had my personal Mandela Effect with New Zealand. And for those of you that haven't heard me talk about this, this was when I was working at my other job and I was bored one day. So I think I was on Above Top Secret, which is like a conspiracy theory, paranormal message board. And I saw a thread that said, has New Zealand completely moved for anyone else? And I just kind of looked at it and I was like, whatever. But then I ended up going to it, and I have a friend named Francesca, that lived in New Zealand. And back then, she would tell me when she was going like on holiday, where she was going on holiday, and she'd be like, well, look up the map of New Zealand and see where that is, from there to wherever I'm going. So I had a really good idea of where New Zealand was. And when I went to that thread on Above Top Secret, everybody is talking about it being in a completely different place. And I'm like, no. So I went to look at a map, and it was completely not where I remember it being, specifically remember it being.
You know what's weird about that? Is that it didn't move until you saw that thread.
Yeah, it didn't. but I hadn't looked
Your
at it. I didn't
awareness
look
of
at
it.
it like it wasn't like the day before when I looked at it. It might have been like the year before that I looked at it. But I knew where it was in relation to Australia. And
Right.
and when I saw that, I was like, what? And I remember, I think I messaged you or called you because I was like, I was really freaked out about that. And other people in that same thread were like, no, it was totally in a different spot. And then somebody on that thread went into Photoshop and put it where they remembered it being. And all of us are like, that is exactly where it used to be. And to this day, that's a thing with me. New Zealand moves for me a lot. And it doesn't, the last time I looked at it, sometimes it's closer to Australia. Sometimes it's like a little bit north of Australia. Sometimes it's on the southern end of Australia. So it's constantly moving for me. And it's not different map structures. I'm looking at the same map all the time. So New Zealand is still constantly moving for me, which is so weird.
It is weird.
But it's a thing. There's other people too.
Yeah.
It's not just me. Like that is one of the things that when you look up like top 20 weirdest Mandela effects, one of them that comes up is New Zealand is constantly moving, and that's happening to me all the time. Why it would happen, I don't know.
Yeah, it's so strange.
But
The
that's
explanation for why this happens
and
is
when I was noticing that, I'm guessing it was around 2004 or 2005. So that was well before Sophia Broom called it the Mandela Effect in 2010. So that's just, it's weird and it still blows me away. But by this point, I'm used to it. I'm like, oh, I see New Zealand's in a different spot again, and granted, I am not really well versed in geography, but I knew I had a really good.
We had a reason to know where
I had
it
a
was.
reason to know a lot about New Zealand because Chess lived there, and we talked about it a lot. So
what did she say when you told her that
she
moved?
said it was weird. And there's people to this day that are like, no, that's where it's always been. And then there's other people that are like, no, that is not where it's always been.
It'd be weird if you lived there and it moved.
But you don't know. You don't notice anything. It's not like,
Right.
I always think of it as, and that people are always like, go back and look at old maps. And that doesn't work. It's like, I always compare it to that scene from Back to the Future where he has that newspaper clipping. And then when he changes something, you see the newspaper clipping change. And that's what happens is that if it's changed now, it's changed back throughout history.
Maybe it is about some kind of time travel, and
We'll get into that.
Okay.
We'll get into that.
Okay.
But some other well-known Mandela effects, I'll just talk about a couple of them. We won't go too far into depth. But there is the Monopoly guy. People are convinced that the Monopoly guy at one time had a monocle. And I can kind of remember. I can picture him jumping on a card and the monocle popping out of his eye. Like, but if you look now, he does not have a monocle. He's never had a monocle. Another one is the phrase from the Disney movie that everybody thinks is mirror, mirror on the wall, and it's not. It's magic mirror on the wall. And there's people that swear that it used to be mirror, mirror on the wall, and it has since changed. That's a big one for a lot of people. And again, that's not one that I would be too familiar with because I'm not really like a big Disney movie person.
If someone asked me what is the phrase, I'd say mirror, mirror.
Yeah. But
I have watched it since then, and it is magic mirror on the wall.
But has it always been magic mirror, or did it used to be mirror, mirror, and all of a sudden one day it just changed?
I could see something like that, like someone repeated it wrong, and just over time, it's like what do they call that?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just people just now that's what they say. It's the same with the Star Wars one.
And
which
it's
you're
the
probably
same with the
talk
Star
about.
Wars one. Yeah, where people are convinced that the line in the movie that Darth Vader said was, Luke, I am your father. And it's not. It was, no, I'm your father. And I firmly believe that is not a Mandela effect because I remember saying that as kids when that movie came out and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And
it was an awards show or something, right?
well, you say, when you say, Luke, I am your father, having Luke in there gives it context to what you're talking about. Because if you just say, no, I am your father.
People are like, eh?
But if you say, Luke, I am your father, that lets people know that you're talking about Star Wars. So I think people have misremembered that one.
But I also thought that there was footage of an award show, like the Oscars or something.
There
where
might be.
James Earl Jones said into the microphone, Luke, I am your father.
Yeah.
And maybe
and
that's
people got
where
confused about that.
Yes.
But that always shows up in the list of Mandela effects, and I don't believe that that's a true Mandela effect. I think
not really.
one thing that we're not going to really get into in this episode is memory stuff and mind stuff. We covered that a lot in the last one. We covered a lot about the way how your memory works and how things get programmed in your memory. So if you really want to hear that, dredge up the old episode and listen to it there, because I don't really go into that one too much in this one.
You haven't mentioned my two favorites yet.
I'm on the fence about that because I do think there are some Mandela effects that I'm 100% convinced exist. New Zealand is one for me because that is still happening. It's a personal
one for you.
And there's some that I think aren't, like the Darth Vader one. I think that's I think it's a memory thing. I really think it is.
I would agree with that.
There's also the Bible stuff, which is weird. Have
we talked about this?
Yes.
Okay.
That
speaking of memory,
people swear that the passage in the Bible used to be the lion shall lay down with the lamb, and it is not. It says the wolf shall dwell with the lamb.
Wolf.
The wolf shall dwell with the lamb.
Interesting.
Yeah, because people are convinced that at one time the Bible quote was, "The lion shall lay down with the lamb, and the bear shall eat grass like the ox, and the child shall play on the hole of the asp, and nothing shall hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain." And now when you go to that passage, it says, "The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf, and the young lion, and the fatling together, and the little child shall lead them."
And this isn't just like, there's so many different versions of the Bible.
No.
It's nothing like that? Okay.
But people are convinced that at one time it said the lion shall lie down with the lamb, and it never said that. So people are like, where did that come from then? Because people remembered the lion shall lie down with the lamb.
I'm not versed enough in the Bible to
know that
one.
This isn't my top one. We'll get to my top one in a little bit, but one that is like right up there with my top one, and we've talked about it in the last episode, was the scene from the James Bond movie Moonraker, where
Jaws.
Jaws. Yes, yeah. Jaws. Like Jaws was like one of the bad guy's henchmen, and he had metal teeth. And he was like, the bad guy that would beat up Bond, and he was big and tough and all that stuff.
Kind of scary.
And throughout the movie, there was a girl, like a young, cute teenage girl that he kind of was smitten with. And at the end of the movie, like towards like the climax or whatever, they, like he smiles at her and she smiles back at him, and he becomes good and all that stuff. But everybody remembers when they originally watched that movie, when the girl smiles back at him, she has braces, which was a really cute tie-in because he has metal teeth. And when she smiles back, she has braces. And then it's like, oh, that's really cute.
They have a little commonality.
And now she does not have braces. And people are really freaked out by that one because everybody remembers the girl having braces.
Well, it makes sense.
Why
would they would
That's
do
what
that?
people even say. They're like, when you watch it now, it just seems off because it's like, it would have been so easy to have it would have been so easy to have braces on her, and she doesn't, and she never did.
Weird.
But everybody remembers the girl having braces. And
I think that's different than misremembering a phrase.
Oh, I do too.
That's a detail.
I do too. Because that's a specific thing that it's like, because that kind of like touched a lot of people that it was like, that's cute that she has braces and he has metal teeth and she does not have braces. And we'll get to probably your favorite Mandela effect.
Yeah, I have two top ones, but I definitely have a number one.
The number one, I'm guessing the number one is Jiffy peanut butter. Where
I have a real problem with this one.
There is a Jif peanut butter. There's a Skippy peanut butter. But a lot of people swear to God that there was a Jiffy peanut butter at one point.
Yep.
And
one of those people.
Krista completely remembers that.
Well, and it's funny because for me, it's not. We were always a Skippy family. We never bought Jif. We always bought Skippy. But my grandma always had Jiffy. I remember my grandma having Jiffy peanut butter. And people say, oh, you're just remembering Jiffy popcorn. We never bought Jiffy popcorn ever. Neither did my grandma. We all had air poppers. Yeah. And so we would buy popcorn in bulk. We didn't. Jiffy popcorn was that stuff you put on the top of your stove, right? In the movie Scream. Yeah. Drew Barrymore. Yeah. And maybe there's a Jiffy brand of popcorn, but I'm not confusing popcorn with peanut butter. They're two completely different food products.
And you said you remember what the package looks like.
I can see it. It was like blue, red. Like I can see the lettering. I can see it was like primary colors. Yes, it existed. And it was like one of those sweet peanut butters.
Yeah, I got... That's weird you said that because I
frustrating.
have a couple quotes off of Reddit about that. Somebody on Reddit said, I clearly remember Jiffy peanut butter. It was sweeter, more like Peter Pan peanut butter is today.
Yes.
I also remember Jif commercials at the same time. The commercial Choosy Mothers Choose Jif made me want to try Jif. After I did try it, it did taste more like real peanuts than Jiffy did. There was definitely a difference in taste, so the two products were not simply one product that shortened its name. Jiffy peanut butter also has absolutely nothing to do with Jiffy baking mixes. There was a Jiffy peanut butter. Somebody else says, Jiffy peanut butter. I noticed this change about 10 years ago. Obviously, I didn't know about the Mandela Effect at the time, so I assumed they just rebranded it. 10 years later, I find out that Jiffy, quote, never existed. I'd sure love to know how I saw it in my mom's kitchen throughout my childhood then.
Right. I think my brother even remembers it too.
Somebody else says, I ate Jiffy nearly every single day as a kid growing up in the late 60s and 70s. It was such a staple in my house, and I ate so much of it that I got sick of peanut butter and I never buy it anymore. Several years ago, I noticed Jif peanut butter in my mom's pantry. She never stopped buying peanut butter. I assumed it was a rebranding thing too, but nope. I even emailed whoever distributes Jif now, Procter & Gamble maybe? That was a few years ago. They claimed it's always been Jif. It has not always been just Jif. So
this one frustrates me.
So people agree with you. And it was funny that you mentioned the sweeter thing because somebody else on Reddit said it was sweeter. It was like a sweeter peanut butter. I don't remember Jiffy peanut butter, but you so firmly do that I 100% believe.
It's such a specific thing, and it's not even something that we had. It was something my grandma had. We were a Skippy household. So
but there are a lot of people that remember a peanut butter named Jiffy that never existed, apparently. What's your other one? What's your other one?
The Berenstain Bears.
That's one I was gonna. That's the next one I was gonna talk about.
We just had a post on Instagram about that one too.
So the Berenstain Bears were books that were named after the author of the books, Stan and Jan Berenstain, and everybody remembers it being spelled Stein, Stein, and it's not.
But I pronounce it Berenstein.
Yeah,
not Stein.
Yeah. I heard Berenstain Bears, but everybody remembers it being Stein, and it's not. It's Stain, Stain, and everybody is like, no, that used to be it used to be Stein and not Stain. And I remember the first time I noticed this, I was at my friend Angie's house, the one that I work with, years and years and years ago. I was there around Christmas time, and her children got the books. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, why are these spelled wrong? And Angie was like, no, they're not spelled wrong. That's always... And I'm like, no, it used to be Stein or Steen, and it's not. It's Stain. And she's like, that's how they've always been spelled.
So crazy.
And people all across the internet are like, no, that used to be spelled differently. It used to be Berenstein or Berenstein, and not Berenstain. Because like I said, if it was stain, we would have laughed about that when we were kids.
Right.
And talked about poop stains. And it was never stain. So that's like a huge Mandela effect, is that so many people are convinced that at some point, for some reason, that changed. All throughout reality, it changed.
And history changed.
Yep. And
there is that photo from Instagram, but that apparently was a misprint that happened.
Yeah.
Because it says Berenstein Bears. It's not Berenstain.
Yep. But one thing I don't really get into in here too much, but there's people that are convinced that there's a residue left behind of when something changes.
And that's why we remember.
That's why we remember, and that's why sometimes you see like the misprint, like somebody
didn't get rid of that
what
evidence.
It used to be, and they misprint it because it's wrong to them. So the Berenstain Bears is a huge, huge, huge one that freaks a lot of people out. And my number one, other than New Zealand, but
is this the Fruit of the Loom one?
Yes, the Fruit of the Loom one is like how you are with Jiffy.
Yeah.
Because
and I don't have a specific memory with this one.
I do. When I was a kid, I had Fruit of the Loom underwear. My parents bought that for me, and I vividly remember the cornucopia.
You and a lot of people.
Yeah, everybody remembers Fruit of the Loom underwear having the fruit coming out of a cornucopia, because
in their logo is
I'll read some stuff off Reddit too, but that is how I knew what a cornucopia was. Because we all knew the cornucopia from the Fruit of the Loom logo, and apparently it never existed. The cornucopia was never on the Fruit of the Loom logo.
So crazy.
So here's a couple things off Reddit about that. Somebody says, I distinctly remember a commercial from my childhood where the Fruit of the Loom characters, the men dressed in the fruit costumes, were walking out of a cornucopia. Now that I read this post, it's a complete mind... I'm not going to say that word. It's a complete mind boggler. Does anyone else remember something similar, or am I splicing the Fruit of the Loom guys into a completely different commercial in my mind? Somebody else says, what I find super creepy is that after reading this, I Googled image, quote, Fruit of the Loom cornucopia, and the results that came up are exactly what I have pictured and known my entire life. So how is that possible? How do so many people not only remember that there was a cornucopia in there at some point, but we also remember the same exact design? Somebody else says, well, I distinctly remember in the 80s at Kmart as a kid being near the underwear section and running over to look at the little fruit coming out of the cornucopia in the Fruit of the Loom logo and being disappointed that it was no longer there. It was just fruit. And my mom told me maybe they just changed it. Somebody else said, I absolutely agree with you. I also learned what a cornucopia was from this logo. I think about this and the Berenstain Bears ones a lot, specifically because I can pinpoint the exact day I noticed the change on both of these. I was in 4th grade in religious education class when I noticed the change in the spelling of Berenstain, and I was in 11th grade when I noticed the cornucopia missing from the Fruit of the Loom logo. So a lot of people remember there being a cornucopia, and I totally do. I know what it looks like in my head, and that's not what it looks like now. So that's a huge one.
I think it's frustrating because it messes with your reality.
It does. It does. Like the first time that happens to you, it completely blows your mind.
It does.
But then you almost get kind of
pulling
like
the rug out
used
from
to
under
it.
you.
Yep. And there's been some recent ones that are And like I said, a lot of people are just...
Like the Ford logo.
The Ford logo one. The Mona Lisa one kind of weirds me out because people remember the Mona Lisa like having that smile more than she does.
Like she was smiling more?
Like she was smiling more.
But isn't that the whole point of the photos? That
No, because she used to have kind of have a...
painting.
She used to have a bigger smile than she does now. Now there's like almost no trace of a smile, but she used to have like more of a trace of a smile.
See, I don't remember that because to me the whole point of the painting, I keep saying photos, that she's just barely smiling, and people want to know, what is she just barely smiling about?
So if you're interested in this, if you go on Google and type in Mandela Effect
just
examples,
be careful because it'll rock your world if you find
there's
one.
a ton of them you can find. One of the newer ones I found, this was on Reddit. The person said, well, this one is sort of mind-blowing. If you've ever taken an art class, it's almost a cliche that you'd be introduced to Georgia O'Keeffe and invariably walk through her flowers/vaginas, which her paintings look like.
They do.
And they said, very few artists achieve a household name status, but O'Keeffe is an American darling, hailed as the mother of American modernism, and she even has a whole museum dedicated to her work. So when did her last name become O'Keeffe with 2 extra F's at the end? It always used to just be Keeeffe.
You just added an extra
I know.
E.
I know.
I wouldn't know this one.
Yeah. And it's weird because I do remember it being just Keeffe with 1 F.
That's what I would imagine too, but
maybe that's just a sound thing where when you hear Keefe, you assume that it's not going to be 2 F's. It'll be 2 E's, but no, it's apparently 2 E's and 2 F's. So that one is kind of messing a lot of people up. So that's,
well, I guess if you're a fan of her work too, artists sign their paintings. You're used to seeing someone's name a lot. So if you had a very specific spelling in your mind and it changed, that would be kind of frustrating.
Yep. So that's the Mandela effect. Krista has one that's very vivid for her. I have a couple that are very vivid for me, and a lot of people do. So what could possibly be causing this? There's a bunch of theories, but I'm going to stick with 2 of them. And the first one I'm going to talk about is, that this is one of my favorites because I bring this up a lot, and a lot of people kind of know that I like this idea, and that is simulation theory. And that is basically the theory that we are living in a computer simulation and that the Mandela effect is just glitches. Or
maybe it's when we got uploaded into this simulation theory.
Yeah.
Maybe we were living in actual reality at one point, and the move to simulation.
What's really weird is my 6th graders. One day, I don't remember what we were even talking about because we have a flex class where we do a lesson and then we just talk about whatever. But I brought this up and they're talking about like weird theories and stuff. And I brought this up and I said, there's people that believe that we are living in a computer simulation. And Hallie, one of my 6th grade girls, said, and this came like out of the blue, and it was so weird. She said, I don't think we always were, but I think we are now. And it's like, where did she get that from? Because she wasn't even around like when 2012 and all this stuff.
Right.
Kind of
Which is when people think
something happened. But that is what I think too. So it was weird she said that, because that's kind of my belief too, that we weren't always in one, but something happened and now we might be in a computer simulation.
So, quick question. If we are living in a computer simulation, really this reality is kind of in our heads?
No, it's real, but it's just programmed. We'll get into that. We'll get into that right now.
So, like, my house doesn't exist, or does it exist?
It does, as a computer program that we're living in. We'll get into this right now.
I have a really hard time.
This is a combination of two articles. One from an April 20th, 2020 article on interestingengineering.com called "Living in the Matrix: Everything You Need to Know About Simulation Theory," and another article that I forgot to put down, so I'm sorry about that article, people. But this is kind of a mashup of two different articles. The article says, quote, "In 2003, 4 years after the movie The Matrix hit theaters, Oxford University philosopher Nick Bostrom published his simulation argument." And this is one that I feel I didn't do justice on in the last episode. I made it more difficult than it needs to be. So his argument contains 3 scenarios, one of which must be true. So there's 3 scenarios. One of these 3 must be true. Scenario number 1, humanity will go extinct before creating technology powerful enough to run convincing simulations of reality. Scenario number 2, humanity will live to see such technology but decide for whatever reason not to run any simulations. Or scenario number 3, humanity will create that technology and run many different simulations of humankind's evolutionary history, in which case there would be many simulated realities and only one non-simulated one, so it's more likely than not that we could be living in a simulation right now. So that's basically saying one of those 3 is going to happen. Either we are going to go extinct before we are able to actually do
the technology,
so perfect simulations, like The Sims, it's like The Sims. It's like the game The Sims. So we're either going to go extinct before we can do that, we will be able to do it, or we're going to decide not to, or there's the possibility we're living in one of those simulations right now that our future us are running. Krista's just looking like, wow.
Talk about not making it more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah.
But why? My question is why? What's the purpose of living in a simulation?
Because they are running a simulation to study a progression of a civilization, or to study how we progressed.
But can't we just
for the
study
same reason that kids love ant colonies. We're like The Sims. They're running us as The Sims. But I totally could see when we get to the point where we can do The Sims so perfectly that The Sims are going to have consciousness, that we would run that in order to see different scenarios or in order to watch the past. And that's what we could be. Krista's just blown
But in
by
order
this one.
don't I need some technology to be able to see the simulation?
No,
are we all laying in a room
it's so
somewhere
perfect.
with
No, because we're computer programs, basically advanced computer programs.
But where are we?
We are.
I can't put this together.
Like the game The Sims. We are those characters. We're just those characters living in this computer.
We're not actual human beings.
We're not actual human beings. We're just characters living in this computer program.
And the simulation is so good we think we're real.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
I know you don't like that. You said that last time we talked about this and you didn't like it. So those are the 3 scenarios. His paper argues that we cannot know for sure if any of these are 100% likely to occur without a doubt, but the third option is most likely the most probable outcome. In short, our great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren will probably have the computing power needed to run evolutionary simulations of humanity. With the way that technology is exponentially progressing every year, why would they not? And how would you know that you are not currently part of one of those simulations? Ponder that for a second. So there's that. And here is from a really, really good February 8th, 2019 article. And I'm going to actually mention the guy's name because we're going to basically read this whole article by Matt Steeb on vulture.com called, quote, 15 irrefutable reasons why we might be living in a simulation. Reason number 1, the Mandela Effect. It explains that it's a glitch.
It does help explain that,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
It explains See, I think it's less of a glitch and more of, well, this is maybe we weren't in a computer simulation and we are now.
Yep.
So the memories we have from before didn't get deleted from our hard drive.
Yeah.
That makes more sense to me than just a glitch.
Yeah, it does. That makes a lot of sense. But it explains the Mandela effect, and then that goes right into number 2, which is it makes more sense than ghosts. It says paranormal events are not hauntings or alien encounters, but glitches in the simulation. This theory is the one most explored on Reddit forums like Are We Living in a Simulation and Glitch in the Matrix, where users explore big ideas in philosophy funneled into the details of the odd or the occult.
I can buy into that.
A storefront exists in a town one day and the next day it doesn't. Explanations include a slip between parallel timelines or a pop-up. A car passenger actually sees the word render appear in the sky as if entering a new part of a video game. Elevators are a frequent setting for glitch stories. The jump between floors seems to encourage a slip within dimensions. So it would explain ghosts. It would explain Bigfoot, that this is all just stuff in the simulation we're living in.
Aliens.
Yep. Number 3, missing aliens. It says, we've spent billions sending probes through outer space and should probably have found evidence of extraterrestrials by now, right? Not so fast. Aliens would likely be far more technologically advanced than we are, the thinking goes. So the fact that we haven't located them suggests we live in a simulation that they've figured out maybe how to escape from. Or maybe the computer we're in only has enough memory to simulate one planetary civilization at a time. So there's that. The next one.
But there are a lot of people who witness UFOs and have like abduction stories.
Yeah.
So
The next one, electrons that can't make up their minds. And this one always fascinated me. Like, I love this whole thing. In physics' famous double slit experiment, electrons are fired at a photosensitive screen through slits in a copper plate, usually producing an interference pattern that indicates wave-like behavior. But when the same experiment is conducted under observation, then the electrons behave like particles, not waves, and there's no interference pattern. Some have taken this to mean our simulation is conserving its resources and rendering certain things only when it knows we're looking at them. And we've talked about this in the last one. I remember talking about that in our room at the school, where we said the snack closet is right there. And because we are not in there, there's nothing there. It's blank. There's nothing exists. When we open that door to go in there is when the simulation fills it in that we can actually go in. Like when you go to a next room in a video game, like when you're in Silent Hill in a school hallway and you open a door, then it builds that room for you to see.
And sometimes if there's a glitch, you can actually watch that happen.
Yeah, but that explains the double slit experiment, which is weird. The double slit experiment is weird
Things change if you're not
things
looking
change
at
if
it.
you're being observed. Like
And
when
I
you're
think
not looking at it.
I watched something on that. So yeah it's very, that's mind blowing actually.
The next one is DNA that contains a computer virus. In 2017, a multidisciplinary group of researchers at the University of Washington proved that they could embed malicious computer code into actual physical strands of DNA. Their aim was to show that computers working in gene sequencing were vulnerable to attack, but they also may have inadvertently revealed what we perceive to be biological reality was in fact computer coding all along.
There are people who think the COVID vaccine has some kind of computer.
Really?
Yes.
I've never heard
some
that.
kind of micro chip in it.
The next one is climate change. It says our civilization. I can't say that word. I hate that word.
Civilization.
Our civilization is set on the cusp of environmental chaos, suggesting we could be an ancestor simulation created in hopes that we'd show our ancestors how we learned to solve an energy crisis. This theory slightly overlaps with the aliens as simulation quitters theory. If we found an innovative solution to climate crisis, extraterrestrial beings might return to steal the results, which is weird. The next one?
I think a theory is that aliens would only come here because they've depleted or destroyed their own resources. Yep. So if we figure out how to stop doing that, which I don't know, I'm not very hopeful.
But it could be another reason that they would run a simulation is to see how we would solve a problem they're dealing with. And then like, oh, that makes sense. Like that's just like the whole thing hinges on the fact that we are super intelligent Sims from the computer game The Sims. That's what we are. The next one, video games that look like real life. Elon Musk is a believer in Nick Bostrom's simulation hypothesis, which posits that if humanity can survive long enough to create technology capable of running convincing simulations of reality, it will create many of them, and therefore we may be living in one of them. According to Musk, video games are really cool these days. In 2016, he explained, quote, 40 years ago, we had Pong, 2 rectangles and a dot. Now, 40 years later, we have photorealistic 3D with millions playing at the same time. If you assume any rate of improvement at all, then the games will become indistinguishable. Then the games will become indistinguishable.
Indistinguishable?
The games will become just like reality, even if that rate of advancement drops by 1,000% from what it is now. It's a given that we're clearly on a trajectory that we're going to have games that are exactly like reality. So it would seem to follow that the odds that we are in the one and only reality is 1 in billions. Krista's like, Your mind is kind of blown by this, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah. It's just hard. I mean, a lot of it it makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's also hard to wrap your head around it.
And this next one is one that I've actually seen pop up a lot lately, and that's weird news. And it says, some have proposed that the recent unlikelihoods, like Donald Trump becoming president, Brexit, the 2017 Oscars envelope mix-up, and that year's 25-point Super Bowl comeback, almost means that we're living in a malfunctioning simulation. Whoever is pushing the buttons is messing around with us.
That's funny.
And a lot of people buy into this one. A lot of people say that things like reality doesn't seem right anymore. Like things almost seem scripted. Like things that are happening that shouldn't be happening, and everything just seems like it's off. The next one is Quarks with computer code. It says, seemingly not crazy theoretical physicist James Gates claims that he had identified what appeared to be actual computer code embedded into the equations of string theory that describe the fundamental particles of our universe. He says he found error-correcting codes, like the kind that make web browsers work. So why were they in the equation that I was studying about quarks and electrons and supersymmetry? So it's weird that they find computer code in the fabric that makes everything up. You know, the next one is, why does our universe have rules in the first place? MIT cosmologist Max Tegmark has pointed to our universe's strict laws of physics as possible evidence that we do live in a video game. He says, quote, if I were a character in a computer game, I would also discover eventually that the rules seem completely rigid and mathematical. In this theory, the speed of light, the fastest rate at which any particle can travel, represents the speed limit for transmitting information within the network of our simulation. You know, and that's like if you're Mario, you have certain rules. You can't jump higher than this. You can't do this. So that puts us, that compares us to like a Mario where we have rules that are fixed that we can't go past. The next one, it's not actually possible to prove we're not living in a simulation. It may be easier to prove that we're living in a simulation than to prove we're not. Nuclear physicist Zorik Davudi believes that cosmic rays, the most energetic particles known to man, would appear as pixel-like chunks if we were within a simulation, and unending beams if we were in base reality. Meanwhile, NYU philosopher David Chalmers doubts it's possible to prove that we don't live in a matrix. He says, quote, you're not going to get proof that we're not in a simulation because any evidence that you get could be simulated. So,
yeah, that's true.
Yep. The next one, the Goldilocks Zone. Earth exists within what astrobiologists call a Goldilocks Zone, close enough to a star that greenhouse gases can trap heat to keep liquid water, but far enough away that the planet does not become a Venusian hothouse. That we live in such an orbital sweet spot is circumstantial evidence for a simulation. If our designers wanted us to succeed, it would make sense that they'd place us in such a cushy environment. Which is true. I mean, we're the way that things are, it almost seems set up that we're on this planet in this exact spot. Jupiter keeps like asteroids and stuff away from us. It's almost like if somebody wanted to set us in a place that would be perfect, it would be here. But maybe that's why we started here, is because it was a sweet spot.
So the class that I'm taking right now is environmental science, and I just did a paper, or I'm working on evolution. And it's interesting to think about the crazy, what do they call it? Like this crazy soup that had to occur that would have organisms that would slowly develop. Like, it's crazy that humans exist. Like how complex
it's crazy that we exist, but what's crazy to me is that we still exist. You know, like
right, the biology though that had to go into us existing.
But like sometimes I think about like, you know, I know it's weird, but sometimes I think about gravity, and it's like, it's weird that what if it just stopped and we all went flying off? Like the fact that we sit here on this revolving planet and we're still here and nothing destroys us,
Right.
is like something is either protecting us.
The odds of it all.
Yeah, like something is
crazy.
protecting us, or
Yeah.
that this is a simulation, that we were set here like this.
Yeah, the odds that we exist and how
Yep.
everything around us works in
Yep.
sort of harmony is
But
crazy.
Yeah. And the next one, we already know what the bricks of our matrix are. According to simulation believers, we may have already found the pixel-sized building blocks of the universe, the Planck length, the point at which our concepts of gravity and space-time no longer apply. If our world is indeed simulated, the Planck length would be an equivalent of 1 bit of information or a pixel. So we kind of know what a pixel size would be if we were... the next one, we're already good at making simulations, and we're just getting better. In 2014, the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, that sounds like a fun school to go to. That sounds like a breeze. That's a
Yeah,
gimme.
no problem.
Connected 8,000 computers to create a 350 million light-year simulation of our
Hey,
universe.
you just described what we are, a
A
simulation.
simulation. Oh, I should
Coin
patent
that
I should
phrase.
coin that phrase. They hooked up 8,000 computers to create a 350 million light-year simulation. I did it again. Simulation of our universe and digitally aged it over 13 billion years. That the Sims video game franchise has sold over 125 million copies in its first decade shows that we're interested in playing with simulations too. So if and when a future version of humanity finds themselves with the ability to create more realistic simulations, it wouldn't be a surprise if they did, which is totally true. You know, people still love The Sims. So somebody is playing The Sims with us, just on a higher level. And the last one they have is Yanny versus Laurel. Remember in 2015 when the world flipped out because we all looked at the same photo and some
There's
of us
more
saw
of
a
those
blue
too.
dress
Yeah.
and some saw a gold dress, or the Yanny Laurel fiasco of 2018, and there was the less explosive blue or gold or white flip-flop debate of 2016. Say what you want about pitch and volume and color saturation, these controversies made one thing clear. Each of us lives in our own world, really. What we perceive as reality is in fact part of a simulation created by our brains using our past experiences to help us process the fragments of data that we're receiving.
Those things are crazy, though.
Yeah, they are. They are.
They mess with your reality
Yep.
for sure.
So yeah. So what's interesting is that Nick Bostrom, who kind of got the ball rolling on the idea of simulation theory, himself kind of refutes some of these pieces of evidence. In a February 6, 2019 interview on Vulture.com called, quote, Philosopher Nick Bostrom on whether or not we live in a simulation. God, I can't pronounce that word today. Simulation. He is asked about the Mandela Effect, and he responds, quote, I don't think it's related at all, actually. I think if we assume that we are not in a simulation, you would still expect there to be various reports of anomalies, paranormal phenomena, etc. Some people have delusions, some people misremember something, sometimes there's a collective phenomenon where a lot of people are mistaken together. I just think from human nature and from reporting bias, you would expect to hear those things every once in a while. So he kind of doesn't buy, even though he postulated the idea that we live in a computer simulation, he kind of doesn't buy the Mandela Effect thing. And then when asked about the weird new stuff, he says, quote, I hear about these events sometimes. Sometimes an individual will write to me and say they had some personal experience that they attribute to being in a simulation. So maybe that's somebody with psychological problems. At any given time, there are metaphors that people reach for if they experience something and they don't know how to fit it into their normal framework. In earlier ages, they would have said they were possessed by a demon. And maybe there are other metaphors to reach for that I heard are in the zeitgeist with computers and their simulations or whatnot. So no, I don't think unusual news is evidence of a simulation. We're fairly ignorant about what kind of simulations would be produced, so we can only make weak guesses about those kinds of observations. So there you go. And kind of going along with that, from a September 27th, 2020 article on Medium.com called, quote, Did the World End in 2012? The article says, quote, the thread also made the claim that the world has gotten more chaotic and that time moves quicker now. It makes the actually logical suggestion that time has felt as though it's moving quicker because all of us are getting older. It's not anything conspiracy related at all. But yes, the world may seem more weird and chaotic in the past 8 years, probably because as we got older, we pay more attention to the chaos. As children or young adults, we may not have cared about who was the president or what was going on in the world, but as fully fledged adults, it's hard to ignore. And
I have a theory about that.
I get that we're more inundated by news, by like constant news.
My theory about this, I'll keep it brief. I think I've talked about it on the show. When you're a kid, your focus is singular. Whatever you're doing, that's what you are doing 100%.
Yeah.
As adults, we are multitasking all day, every day.
Yeah.
And so time slips by without you noticing it because you're not in the moment
No,
anymore.
I totally agree with that.
Kids
I totally
are
agree
in
with
the
that.
moment all the time.
And I do think it's a combination of that and that we are hit by news everywhere.
Yeah.
We're hit by constant information is hitting us nonstop all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think that the whole...
I think kids now are time's going to go faster for them because of social media and the internet.
Yes.
And we didn't
But
have
the whole
that.
thing with Trump becoming president at the time seemed completely like scripted. Like this is weird. Like this shouldn't happen. You know, like, and I understand that makes things feel like super chaotic and like things aren't normal, you know? So, but I agree with what you said. And I think it's that and the information bombardment that we're getting that makes everything seem weird.
We partially do it to ourselves.
We
though.
do.
Turn the TV off, set your
Scroll
phone
through
down.
Facebook and see what people are complaining about on the news. Yeah,
Yep.
I totally 100% agree. But so there's some stuff about simulation theory. Like I totally buy that. I totally buy that we could be living in a computer simulation.
It's not that I don't buy it. I just don't like it.
I know you don't. I know you
I
don't.
don't like the idea that somebody else is controlling my reality. What about
But
free
they're
will?
not. We're maybe
so we have free will still?
we have free will. We're just computer people.
I guess because
we're
they
Sims
say
with
AI,
free will that some god started a game.
Yeah, AI can have, can start to think on its own.
Yeah,
It
and
already
like
is.
they said, what's to say that you and I didn't just start our thing today, and that we were programmed with our
To have a
past
history.
knowledge to have a history?
Oh, no.
Which that is one thing that people talk about
Blah.
is that maybe you and I never met before today, but we have pre-programmed history that we have.
I don't like it.
You know, so I am 100% on board with simulation theory. It explains deja vu, it explains ghosts, it explains all this stuff, and you know, I did go to that Reddit article where somebody swears that when they were driving one day, they were looking at a part of the sky and all of a sudden it said rendering, like a computer would say when it's filling in stuff, you know, and I've had weird days. Like I think I talked about this on here one day when I was driving by Lake Michigan and I was just looking at the lake and all of a sudden there was this burst of light for like a split second. And I was like, what was that? And then it was gone. But there was this, and it was like, did something just happen in that one moment that... You know, and other people have said something like that happened to them. Somebody said that they had something like that around 2012, and they wonder if that wasn't when things switched over. And there are people that legitimately believe the world did end in 2012, but that somehow we were put in a simulation to continue, which is weird. So there's some mind-blowing stuff for you. There's simulation theory.
Yeah, I'm on board. I'm just an unwilling passenger. I've been kidnapped and stuffed into a van.
I'll take that. I'll accept that. And one of the other, just the only other one we're going to talk about, though. The only other thing we're going to talk about as a possible thing for the Mandela Effect is CERN. And a lot of people point to CERN as the cause of all this going on. CERN is weird. And some of this stuff I was reading this and I'm like, what? Like, I don't remember looking at some of these facts about it last time.
Maybe they didn't exist last time.
Oh, good
Mandela
point.
Effect.
Good point. This just kind of blew me away a little bit. So, straddling the French-Swiss border, the $9 billion CERN Colliders complex is buried at a depth of up to 575 feet. The tunnel complex runs along a 17-mile circuit. Scientists involved in the project say the laboratory was built underground because the Earth's crust provides protection against radiation. They also say that it was buried out of respect for the natural landscape, which sounds slightly ironic considering the massive damage the collider could possibly do somehow down the road.
Right.
The CERN Collider, it's a super collider, basically. That's what it is. It's
Smashes
a
particles
large
together,
hadron collider. Yep. The CERN Collider is composed of 9,600 supermagnets, which are 100,000 times more powerful than the gravitational pull of the Earth, that fire protons around a circular track at mind-boggling speeds. A beam might rotate for up to 10 hours, traveling a distance of more than 10 billion kilometers, enough to make it to the far reaches of the solar system and back again. traveling just below light speed, a proton in a Large Hadron Collider will make 11,245 circuits of the loop every second.
Ugh, that's crazy.
That's just nuts.
That's mind-blowing.
That is mind-blowing. There may be
and
another...
slightly terrifying.
Yeah, there may be another reason for the CERN Super Collider being buried hundreds of feet underground. The hot temperatures it can reach. How hot, do you ask? Well, as hot as conditions in the universe after the Big Bang, or more than 100,000 times the temperature at the center of the sun. That is just nuts to me, that 100,000 times hotter than the inside of the sun.
How did they get this approved?
I don't know. Astonishingly, astrophysical observations have demonstrated that all visible physical matter accounts for only 4% of the universe. Now the race is on at CERN to find those elusive particles or phenomena responsible for dark matter, which makes up 23%, and dark energy, which makes up 73%. It's crazy to me that visible physical matter only makes up 4% of the universe. And that's where dark matter and dark energy comes in. Essentially, what the CERN experiment hopes to achieve is to separate, by ways of the atom smasher, the invisible dark matter, which has been described as the very glue that holds together everything visible. There's just one problem with this experiment. Nobody has any idea what the consequences will be if that goal is achieved. So once again, this dark versus visible paradigm has generated a battle that transcends the scientific world, becoming a question involving philosophy and spirituality. And that gets to the Higgs boson, or the God particle. And this...
That's what they're trying to create,
yes,
right?
and they did.
Yeah, yes.
And this... I went to Kiddle, which is like the kids' version of Google that we use for school, to look up the Higgs boson article.
I should use that for school.
Higgs boson or Higgs boson? I think it's Higgs boson.
Boson.
So I looked this up on Kiddle, and even now it's like, okay. The Higgs boson is a particle in the Standard Model of Physics. In the 1960s, Peter Higgs was the first person to express the idea. On March 14th, 2013, scientists at CERN tentatively confirmed that they have found the particle. It is one of the 17 particles in the Standard Model. The Higgs particle is a boson. Bosons are thought to be particles which are responsible for all physical forces. Other known bosons are the photon, the W and Z bosons, and the gluon. Scientists do not yet know how to combine gravity with the Standard Model. The Higgs field is a fundamental field of crucial importance to particle physics and theory. Unlike other known fields such as the electromagnetic field, the Higgs field takes a non-zero constant value almost everywhere. The question of the field's existence has been the last unverified part of the Standard Model of particle physics, and according to some, it's the central problem in particle physics. It's difficult to detect a Higgs boson. Due to their massive size, compared with other particles, it needs vast amounts of energy to create them. The Large Hadron Collider at CERN was built mainly for this. It accelerates two sets of partials to almost light speed, traveling in opposite directions, before setting them then on a path to collide with each other. Each collision produces a flurry of new particles, which are detected by detectors around the point where they collide. There is a very small chance, around 1 in 10 billion, of a Higgs boson particle appearing and being detected, so the LHC needs to smash together trillions of particles, and supercomputers need to sift through a massive amount of data to find the few collisions where evidence of the Higgs boson is. That is just mind-blowing to me. Yeah. It really is.
What's also mind-blowing to me is that we still have very little understanding of how things work around us.
Yeah, we do. It's
all
nuts.
A big mystery.
Yeah, it's nuts. I don't remember what article this is from either. I was really bad with it this week. From some other article. Sorry, article people.
All your hard work is not getting any credit right now.
I know. Although it may require some mental gymnastics to wrap one's brain around exactly what the CERN scientists are attempting to achieve in their underground lab, the average layman may instinctively understand that such an experiment might be wrought with unforeseeable pitfalls.
You think?
Stephen
black hole.
Stephen Hawking, the eminent physicist, seems to agree. Hawking said, quote, "The God particle found by CERN could destroy the universe. The Higgs boson could become very unstable at very high energy levels and have the potential to trigger a catastrophic vacuum decay, which would cause space and time to collapse, and we would not have any warnings whatsoever to the dangers." And when Stephen Hawking, I mean, he knows he's not an idiot. He's not an idiot. When he even says,
At least if something like that happened, we wouldn't know. We wouldn't know it was coming. It would just be over.
Yep. But that gets to the point that maybe
that's where simulation.
That's not simulation theory, but something happened to our timeline. Like something happened, and that gets to parallel universes.
When did CERN start doing this?
I'm not exactly sure, but I think it was around the time that the Mandela Effect started to kind of show up. So there's a lot of the theories that CERN opened some kind of door to parallel universes, and that could be why. Because maybe, like we talked about in the episode about this that we did way back when, that maybe something happened, but we have some sort of
residue.
No, not residue, but like some sort of self-protective. System that when we are gonna poof out, we move to a parallel universe.
Sure.
Where things are a little bit different.
It's like a backup drive.
It's like a backup drive. Exactly. 1 year after CERN's grand opening, Sergio Bertolucci, former director for research and scientific computing of the facility, grabbed headlines when he told a British newspaper the super collider could open otherworldly doors to other dimensions for, quote, a very tiny lapse of time, mere fractions of a second.
Just enough for Bigfoot to pop in.
Exactly. However, he said, that may just be enough time to, quote, peer into this open door, either by getting something out of it or sending something into it. Of course, he added, after this tiny moment, the door would again shut, bringing us back to our normal four-dimensional world. It would be a major leap in our vision of nature, and of course, there would be no risk to the stability of our world, he says. Yeah, right. Like, they're messing around with things that I just feel like you shouldn't mess around with.
Yeah.
And maybe say that you can do this and you can open a wormhole that looks, I don't want to get into major spoilers, but that was kind of what happened on Fringe. That's very much what happened on Fringe, was this idea of looking into a parallel universe and what that can do.
I understand wanting to understand how things work in the universe, but why do we have to recreate it?
I don't know. Because that's what scientists do. That's what scientists do.
But you have to weigh the consequences.
Yeah. But like when Stephen Hawking says,
I'm sorry, even I don't care if it's 500 feet under the ground. Yeah. If you create a black hole down there.
Yeah. But when one of the bad things that could come out of it is catastrophic vacuum decay, which would cause space and time to collapse.
That just doesn't sound good to me. That
doesn't sound worth it to me. No. Like, just let it keep running like it's doing. We don't need to know everything. So there's a lot of people that believe that's what happened. That something happened with CERN. That when CERN started messing around with this stuff, something happened with parallel universes where things are maybe starting to bleed over from parallel universe to parallel universe. And that is what the Mandela Effect is about. And some people believe that CERN is messing up the simulation if we are living in a simulation, so a lot of people tie this stuff in with CERN.
To me, it doesn't really explain like paranormal phenomena though, because that's been going on for centuries.
Yeah, totally. Centuries. I 100% agree with that. If we are not a simulation, then paranormal phenomena is ghosts and demons and Bigfoot.
I mean, it could be parallel universes.
It could be. We mentioned that's what EVPs could be. It could be voices bleeding through from a parallel universe.
I just don't think a simulation.
I 100% believe in parallel universes.
Yeah, I do too.
But then you get to the mind-boggling stuff about if every one of our choices splits off into a parallel universe. Every second of our life is a choice.
Krista tries not to think about stuff.
Every second of our life. I could get up and run out of this room right now, and you'd be like, what? But that would be something that is a physical possibility.
I'd be a deer in the headlights.
Yeah. That's something that could be, Lucy would be chasing me. That would be something that's like a physical possibility. So every possible thing you could do in any given moment is done and branches off into a parallel universe, which is weird to me. I don't know, but I do like the idea of parallel universes. So now we get into some weird stuff about CERN. There's a lot of people that think CERN isn't what it claims to be.
Sure. A lot of people.
So one of the things is where it is. I wish I could remember where I got these from. I got to start writing down my sources a little better.
I'm so used to it with school. I have to cite all my resources. I can send you my notes on that.
So this article I read said, now on top of all the speculation as to what CERN scientists are really attempting to do with their Large Hadron Collider, many observers could not help notice that the town in France where CERN is partially situated is named St. Genus Poli, or Poli. The name Puli comes from the Latin Apulacium, and it's believed that in Roman times a temple existed there in honor of Apollo, and the people who live there believe that it is a gateway to the underworld. It is interesting to note that CERN is built on the same spot that is supposedly a gateway to the underworld. And there's the CERN logo, which is weird. It's the word CERN with a couple circles around it, and the circles have lines. I'll show you one. Okay. And the circles have lines coming off of them, and it's not that difficult to see a 666 in the logo. Why would
they be so obvious?
This one I think is a stretch, but still, I looked at it and it's like, really? You couldn't come up with something that didn't look so.
Sure. I mean, the sixes are kind of upside down and backwards.
But you can see there are 3 6s there. I mean, it's obviously like, you can see that if somebody wanted to work 3 6s in there, it's a stretch, but a lot of people point to the 3 6s in their CERN logo.
Okay.
Another one is, although most corporations shun any connection with religion and the spiritual world, CERN has chosen as its mascot a Hindu goddess. Not just any Hindu goddess, and just outside of its headquarters building sits an ancient statue to Shiva, ancient Apollyon, the goddess of destruction. But I believe she's also the goddess of creation. But it's very weird that they have this statue of the goddess of destruction, Shiva, outside CERN headquarters.
That is weird. Like, what's the point of that?
Yep. And one last thing, and this, I remember when this happened, I was like, really? I mean, it is the Cern Ritual hoax.
I think we've talked about this,
and Wikipedia describes it saying, the Cern Ritual hoax is a found footage video that depicts a supposed occult ritual occurring in the grounds at CERN, a European particle physics research organization. The video shows several people dressed in black cloaks surrounding a statue of the Hindu god Shiva and apparently stabbing a woman in a human sacrifice. The video ends with the person filming it crying out, cursing, and running away as he witnesses this from a nearby window. The video became popular in August 2016, buoyed by many existing conspiracy theories concerning CERN. CERN later stated in its frequently asked questions that the video was, quote, fiction, and that the actions violated its professional guidelines, as would indeed a real ritual sacrifice.
And, law.
Yeah. A CERN spokesperson stated that the video was a prank and that no one was actually harmed. The mock ritual was performed without any official permission. CERN stated that it, quote, doesn't tolerate this kind of spoof, and that it gives rise to misunderstandings about the scientific nature of our work. The video caused controversy both by creating mockery of existing theories and by fueling existing conspiracy theories about CERN activities. Given that the ritual was performed in front of a statue of the dancing Shiva, some believe was satanic in nature. This further fueled theories that CERN's goal was to use their Large Hadron Collider to create a portal to hell, to summon the Antichrist, or to resurrect ancient gods.
What does Shiva have to do with Satanism?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But there's a lot of people. But the video is like, the video is weird to me. It's like, why would you do that? I mean, even as a joke, and to have somebody stationed at a window up there and then swear in the video.
Yeah, that's
like
weird.
The fact that he swore in the video is weird to me because I don't know. I just think it's weird. I'm not saying that I think it was a legit human sacrifice, but I just think it's like, why would you do that when you already have people worried about what you're doing there?
Right.
Why would you pranksters do this and get this out there to make things so much worse?
So they basically admitted that some of their people made this video as a hoax.
I'm hoping they got fired.
Yeah, it's weird. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
It is a weird
You've seen
thing
the video, haven't you?
I think so. I have like a picture in my head of all
Yeah,
this. So I
people
think
come
so.
out, like the Shiva statue is there and people come out in black cloaks and a girl like kneels down or lays down and it looks like they stab her and stuff. And then the guy swears and the camera shakes and he like runs away. And there's people that to this day are convinced that really happened, that they are doing satanic things at CERN, but not really buying that. I think what they're doing is scary enough without having to really drag Satan into it.
Right. I would call it devil worshipping because Satanists don't really.
No.
They're totally different things.
So that's some stuff about CERN. There's a lot of people that think CERN is up to no good. And even if,
I think people are making connections that don't exist.
I think so too. But you see that a lot when you look up stuff about CERN.
Yeah.
In the November 25th, 2020 article on popdust.com by Keith Baldwin called "This Haunts Me. Did Scientists at CERN End the World in 2012?" The article says, "Do you remember 2012? People were convinced that the world was going to end, that the Mayan calendar had predicted it more than 2,000 years earlier. And protesters and time travelers continued to decry the cataclysmic dangers of CERN's Large Hadron Collider, where scientists were taking apart the building blocks of the universe to understand how they worked. And then those scientists discovered the particle they were looking for without any apparent disruption to the fabric of reality, and the year passed without the world flipping on its axis or neutrinos suddenly becoming deadly while John Cusack raced to save his children. Did you laugh then at the people who predicted doom? Did you mock them? And how have things been for you since then? Because for most of the world, they have become increasingly weird, chaotic, and incomprehensible, suffused with a growing sense of unreality. People and events have stopped making sense, almost as if the predictable order of the universe has begun to unravel. Back in 2012, the Higgs Boson was still theoretical. It was thought to mediate the quantum field responsible for giving particles mass, thus regulating the force of gravity. And beneath the border of France and Switzerland, scientists at CERN were using their enormous and incredibly powerful particle accelerator to find it. They were hoping to improve our understanding of gravity, the weakest of the fundamental forces, yet potent enough to puncture the fabric of the universe, creating a black hole from which even light cannot escape. It's as familiar as it is mysterious. At the quantum level, the mechanics of gravity remain little understood, and events are theorized to take place not as a result of ordinary cause and effect, but as a function of probabilities. A popular explanation for this is that every possible outcome takes place at once, but splits off into endlessly branching multiverses. And that's parallel universe theory. So what if that cluster was held together by the force of gravity? What if the people decrying the incredible power of the Large Hadron Collider were right to be worried? The scientists at CERN might have been messing with forces beyond their control, beyond their understanding. So maybe they did trigger a doomsday scenario, just one that we couldn't see. 3 weeks after they announced the discovery of the Higgs boson, the sun shot out the largest solar flare in more than a century. If it had struck the Earth, it would have caused trillions of dollars of damage to electronics worldwide. It missed us by the astronomical equivalent of inches. That was just the beginning. Could it be that they ruptured our universe's quantum gravitational bond to that core of probable realities? That we have been drifting further and further from its center ever since into increasingly improbable events? If so, then by now we are either living at a frayed end split off from the central strand of the multiverse waiting to be pruned, or we are doomed to spiral off into an endless fractal of increasing absurdity. Each year seems more ridiculous than the last, an eternal apocalypse of strangeness. The more I thought about it, the more I began to see the evidence in every improbable headline. I've started to perceive our hyperdimensional drift in the erratic behavior of my fellow human beings. It's not that they are becoming unhinged from reality, it's that reality has become unhinged and we are adapting to it. So that's a weird thought, that things really are like the weird news, that things are getting weirder because something that they did with the Hadron Collider ruptured where we were in the parallel universes, and we are now on a trajectory of increasingly bizarre parallel universes.
Mm-hmm. So my thought on that, though, is that as human beings, we need a scapegoat. We need there to be a reason. So when life gets chaotic, the blame has to fall somewhere. We can't just accept that life can just be chaotic. We have to blame something. And so this is this guy's way of blaming something for the fact that life is just a little bit messed up. Humans are a little messed up.
I mean, totally, 100%. So I don't know. But, and say we are living in a simulation. According to an August 10th, 2020 article on Scientific American called, quote, "Could we force the universe to crash?" The article says, quote, "The question is, how do you bring down a simulation of reality from inside of it? The most obvious strategy would be to try to cause the equivalent of a stack overflow, asking for more space in the active memory of a program than is available by creating an infinitely or at least excessively recursive process. And the way to do that would be to build our own simulated realities, designed so that those within those virtual worlds would become entities creating their own simulated realities. All the way down the rabbit hole. If all of this worked, the universe as we know it would crash, revealing itself as a mirage, just as we winked out of existence."
It's like turning two mirrors facing each other.
It seriously is. Because if we're in a simulation and we create a simulation and give them the ability that the power is getting sucked up exponentially. But interventions like this risk undermining the reason for a species running such simulations in the first place, which would be to learn something deep about their own nature. Perhaps letting it all crash is simply the price to pay for the integrity of the results, or perhaps they're simply running the simulation containing us to find out whether they themselves are within a fake reality. So you get to really mind-blowing stuff, you know? So if we are in a fake reality, say we are simulated, maybe the people that simulated us are also simulated.
Right.
And at
And
some
so
point,
on and so
at
forth.
some point, there's not going to be enough power and everything's just going to poof out, you know? And in a September 27th, 2020 article called, "Are We Living in an Artificial Intelligence Simulation?" at Unite.ai website. And I thought this was really interesting. The article says, quote, "The human simulated perception of time differs from the time experienced in a computer, especially when you factor in quantum computing. A quantum computer would enable time to be non-linear. We could experience the perception of time without the actual passage of time. Even without the power of quantum computing, OpenAI successfully used large-scale deep reinforcement learning to enable a robotic hand to teach itself to manipulate a Rubik's Cube. It was able to solve the Rubik's Cube by practicing for the equivalent of 13,000 years inside a computer simulation."
Oh my gosh.
So they can make 13,000 years pass inside a computer simulation in a matter of whatever, weeks. You know, so
A simple way to think about that probably is like, I'm playing Skyrim right now because it's the game that goes on forever and ever because of all the side quests. You
Yes.
never actually stay on task, but you can, it's sort of like sleeping.
yeah,
You know, you can
yes.
stay at the end
Yeah.
and you heal during that
Yes.
time. So you speed up time and a lot of
Yeah.
stuff is happening
Yeah.
in that, but it's sort of condensed into just a couple seconds.
Yeah, but it's also kind of like real life dreaming where I can fall back asleep for like 3 or 4 minutes and have a dream that seems like it went on for longer than that.
For hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're saying
all about
that
perception.
in computer space, inside computer space, in quantum computing, you can make something live 13,000 years in a matter of hours or something like that. So if we
It's all
were,
about math.
if we were living in a simulation, our whole history together, yours and mine, might have only lasted realistically a second. But, you know,
Feels like 15 years.
so we'll kind of end that with the mind-blowing stuff. But I'll end this with this article from Vice.com from March 11th, 2019 called, quote, "How the Mandela Effect Theory of False Memories Took Over the Internet." The article says, quote, "Scientists at British University Leeds in 1973 were doing an experiment and ran into some anomalies with it. They hypothesized that in order to explain away the anomalies, there had to be a particle 40 to 70 times the mass of a proton, a boson which would mediate weak interactions, and they named this theoretical particle the Mandela particle," which is weird. In 1975, a team of scientists from Durham University tried to replicate the measurements, but couldn't, and other scientists after that also couldn't replicate them, leading the original team to admit that the likelihood of the Mandela particle is, quote, "not as large as we thought at first, and their methods may have been faulty." So I just thought that was kind of an interesting piece of trivia, that there was at one time something named a Mandela particle, but then they couldn't recreate it.
That's so weird.
So it was like it didn't exist.
Interesting.
So I'm going to end
Is
that.
that a synchronicity?
Kind of a synchronicity. Yep.
Speaking of, real quick, did you start season 2 of How You're
Not yet.
Okay.
So I just want to end this whole thing with this quote from that same article. It says, "One thing that differentiates the Mandela effect from conspiracy theory, however, is that it doesn't claim to have found an answer. Indeed, it only asks more questions." Reddit user 9demonbag says, quote, what makes this the biggest thing since sliced bread, for me at least, is all the possibilities. There's so much potential if you could just find the forces behind it." And that's what it all
true.
boils down to, is that,
It's a very succinct way of putting it.
yeah, like I 100% believe in the Mandela effect.
Yes.
I don't think it's as widespread as other people do with everything that they're throwing as evidence.
Right.
But there's the Fruit of the Loom logo. It's not even a question in my mind. I know what that looked like when I was a kid. You know, I had that underwear. I used to look at that logo with the fruit and the cornucopia that never existed. So somewhere along the line, reality changed, and that is no longer there.
I think the what you said about being more widespread than it actually is, that's that whole thing about humans needing to blame something.
Yeah.
So they hear about this Mandela effect
Yeah.
and all. That's
And
why
then
I
when they can't
misremembered
find their
that.
keys,
Right.
you know, So there you go. What do you think?
Well, again, I buy the idea of simulation theory. I think it could explain a lot. I wouldn't be surprised. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
Because then I start asking questions like, well, if someone's controlling everything, can you stop with the tsunamis? Can you stop with the cancer?
But, like the whole thing with the pandemic and all this stuff, that's an example of how reality is kind of getting out of control, and we're getting more... Most of it called it absurdity. Instead of weirdness. Most of it said that we're almost, and I agree with that one article that says if something happened with CERN and it disconnected us from a main fiber we were in for our universe, that now we're drifting away into more, we're getting into like universes that are more absurd than the last. That stuff is just weird now and not right. So there you go. CERN, Mandela Effect, and simulated reality in a nutshell.
Yeah. So, your head's hurt now?
Yeah. I'm guessing they probably do.
Do you need to take a nap?
I get it. I get living in a simulation, and I get why people like Leonardo da Vinci could do amazing things. Is because they somehow found a way to hack different levels of the simulation we're in, that they were able to see things like that we can't. Like if this is all computer code, maybe they could see things we can't.
Right.
I don't know. But there you go. But if we are a simulation, that doesn't make you and I any less real. We're just real in this simulation,
But also not real.
But also not real because we are the Sims. Real life, we are advanced versions of the Sims.
Right.
Like I said, it's like kids with an ant farm.
Yeah.
That gets to be like Stephen King's book Under the Dome.
Yeah.
Did you read it?
It was a TV show.
Did you read it?
Yes, and I watched the show too.
But the book, spoiler here, what kind of happens at the end is that when the dome comes down and stuff like that, you find out it's basically like an alien version of kids watching an ant farm. They're like, what would happen if we took this town and plopped this glass down on it and trapped all these people in this town? And that's aliens like...
It's like an experiment.
It's like an experiment. Yeah. And that's kind of what we are an experiment.
I don't like it.
Krista doesn't like it. Nope. What do you guys think? Let us know. Krista noped all over that. So let us know what you guys think. Sorry if it's just a rehash of our old episode, but new people.
I think it was new information.
There's some new information.
Yeah. So
let us know what you guys think. Or was it? Okay, since we're running a little bit long with this one, we're going to skip a tarot reading and we're going to skip a listener question, give you guys a couple more days to enter another one.
What about a joke? Are we going to do a joke?
We'll do a joke. We got to do a joke. So you guys ask us any questions you want. The link should be in the strangers. And we are going to do our song thing.
Yeah, Kurt and I are going to sing.
No, we're going to sing Islands in the Stream. We're doing the thing now with the 30-day music challenge where you have to pick a song. And our song for this time involved a title that has a color in it. Mm-hmm. Did you pick one?
I did.
Oh, I thought you did at the start of the episode.
I didn't, but then I Googled that
and
phrase,
it popped up.
And there were several that I was
there were
like,
a bunch. There were a lot that I wanted to do. I'm not going to say it in case yours is one of them. So you go first.
Mine is the Rolling Stones, "Paint It Black."
Okay.
I love that song.
I'm not a fan of that song.
Oh, really?
No.
So there was a show on. Was it like late 80s, early 90s? I think it was called China Beach.
Yeah, China Beach.
I loved that show. And that was like the opening theme song to that show. So that was the first time I ever heard that song. But I just love the lyrics. I love everything about it. I think it's a great song. There's a lot of commentary in there about just like life in general. But I think that's a great song. So my choice is Paint It Black by the Rolling Stones.
It's an okay song. It was not like, what song I really like by the Rolling Stones that like never really shows up in their super popular songs, but a song I love is Waiting on a Friend.
It doesn't even ring
Seriously?
a bell to me.
It's like 80s era Rolling Stones, but it's good. Mm-hmm. I'll play it for you after the episode, but I really like, I'm not a Rolling Stones guy. I'm just not. They have some good stuff.
Well, they always say, are you Beatles or Rolling Stones?
Totally Beatles.
Totally Beatles.
Totally Beatles. Yeah. I can't even believe that's a comparison.
I know, right? Their music is so different.
Yeah. But there were songs like I did the same thing you did where I Googled songs with colors in the title.
Right.
And there's
you
a
just
bunch.
Don't think of it.
No, there's a bunch that are on there that I would love to do, like Brown Eyed Girl.
That was
is
one
a classic song.
Yes, totally.
Procol Harum's Whiter Shade of Pale is a good song.
That song.
Yeah, so I thought about doing that one. Oh, now you're mad.
Yes.
Krista's mad now. She
Elton
didn't pick that one.
John's
Goodbye Yellow Brick
Road.
Yep.
I love that
Yep.
song.
And there's a lot of them, but I'm going with the song that I love. And
Probably I've never heard of.
you probably did.
Okay.
Maybe not, though. It's from the 80s. It's
I'm not a big 80s person.
It's an 80s song, and it's one of those songs that was never like a huge 80s, and that's nothing like Walk Like an Egyptian or Girls Just Want to Have Fun, but it's an 80s song, and it's one of those songs that if you were like from that era, if it came on the radio, you would turn it up and you'd be like, this is such a good song.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those songs that I still have on my flash drive in my car that I listen to, my music stuff, and it's just one of those songs that just makes me miss being in the 80s, and it's just a good song. And it is the song Midnight Blue by Lou Gramm. It is such a good song.
I'm sure if I hear it, I'll know.
You know, and then it's got this one part in the song where the drums kick in and the other stuff kicks in, and it's just so good.
Midnight Blue.
Midnight Blue by Lou Gramm. I love, love, love that 80s song. That reminds me of back then
Good
when
times.
life was good and
Before the Mandela
when I had
Effect
hope
and
still, and it was just
we weren't in a simulation.
we weren't in a simulation, and there was no Mandela Effect, and CERN didn't botch everything up, and yeah, good times.
Awesome.
So those are our songs for this time.
Sweet. You
Cool.
ready for a pickle joke?
I'm ready for a pickle joke.
Okay. What? These are so bad.
We'll do one listener question. How about that?
Yeah, you look it up while
Okay.
I'm reading a pickle joke. There's a picture to go with it, a drawing, a rendering. What do you do when a man with a shotgun demands all your pickles?
Hand them over?
You give him both barrels.
Okay. That one's
That's not
actually
that
funny.
bad. At least
that one's actually kind of
Do you
funny.
want to see the picture? That's the picture.
That's cute. That one is actually kind of funny.
It wasn't bad. I mean, they're all bad, but that one at least made sense. Some of them are just completely nonsensical. I am freezing. This is the point in the podcast when we've been down here for like 2 hours.
Krista's always
and I'm
cold.
So cold.
She gets this blanket or jacket and she just progressively like wraps it more around her. Wow. Okay. This is our question for today. We'll do two of them because the other one might be short.
Okay.
First one, you have to relocate to a new country for 30 days. What country do you pick?
Greece.
England.
I love how we were both just like, boom.
Yep. England.
All right.
In a heartbeat. Next one, if you could start a charity of your own, what would it focus on?
Oh, animals.
Animals.
Those are
Totally
easy.
animals. Totally animals.
Yeah, totally animals. And children maybe, but
I really like the St. Jude's thing, like helping families that have to go to hospitals, like with children in hospitals. I think that's a super good charity.
yeah. I agree.
There's a lot of good ones.
There really are.
Yeah.
Animals just come to mind because they're so helpless.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And I love them.
I do too. So that's just like our first go-to. That was our fastest ever.
Yeah, wow. Boom.
England and animals for me. Greece and animals for Krista.
Grease and animals.
I think that's probably it.
I think so.
Anything else?
Nope.
No.
Happy spring.
Happy spring.
It's actually a week from this weekend.
Tonight's a daylight
officially.
savings time.
It is. I know we're going to lose an hour.
I
So it's
hate
going to be
daylight.
dark well, not dark, but the sun's just going to be coming up when you get
And
here
I don't
now.
like that because I like driving down here when it's light.
We could come a little
I'm
later.
already worried about hitting deer on the highway when I'm got my coffee in one hand and my McGriddle in the other, and I'm driving at my
And you're
knees,
texting
and I'm
and
texting
with
and
your
I'm steering
nose.
with my knees. Yeah. So,
Right, I didn't need to know that.
Yeah. And when my chest's hurting like it is, who even knows if I'm going to be here next time?
Stop it.
If I'm not, just do the episode, leave this microphone on, and I will try to
Show up? Okay.
show up and talk.
Sweet. I like it. I mean, I don't like it, but
It'll just be like my
you
ghost.
can at least haunt me.
It would just be my ghost stomach grumbling all the time that you would hear.
Did you hear that?
Did you hear that? So I think from
that's
Krista and I, from the strange cellar, until next time, stay strange.